Welcome, everyone. This is Empowering Women for Excellence Initiative STEM special event. As you've seen that this session is being recorded throughout today. So thank you for giving your consent for that to happen. We are kicking off as we want to respect everyone's time and ensure that we can cover what we would like to cover today. So the first thing that we will be doing is I'm going to give you an idea of who is here and just basically the kinds of numbers that we have in attendance today. So we have had more than 100 participants register for this event. Our gender disaggregation at this point is 34 female and 81 males. Ladies, I want to see you shine and obviously encourage others to get involved. We have 13 countries that will be represented during this event. I mean, and just really diverse countries from China to Indonesia, Jordan, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Vietnam, even Australia. And we have a huge number that are obviously from Nigeria, where Empowering Women for Excellence Initiative is headquartered. And we have people from Abuja, Adamawa, Edo, Gombe, Kaduna, Kwara, Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, and Osun states. We have at least 12 educational institutions represented. And from NGOs and companies, we have about 90 people represented. So we're hoping that our colleagues will join us. We understand, obviously, that there are connection issues and all kinds of issues that are going on with the internet. So rest assured, we understand that, and we're asking that you just hold on and keep with us throughout the course of the session. The first thing that we will be doing is to go over our agenda for today. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what we will be doing together today. I will go into introductions a little bit later. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see what on earth we're doing today together. So as I said, this is a STEM special event. It's one of our programs that are offered by Empowering Women for Excellence Initiative. It's powered by EWI and supported by INUSI. You will hear a lot more about both organizations as we go on. And obviously the session is cybersecurity and how the youth can gear up to acquire skills in this field. So we are starting off with welcomes, introductions, and our opening poll, we'll do it in a few minutes. You will then be watching a very short video about what EWI can do for you. And then we will have a word from INUSI. And then we'll get straight down to business. Now, it's going to be very much, yes, it's going to be interactive, but know that there's a lot of information that you'll be taking in today. So the presentations and some interaction. We will also have breaks in between and one big break. And then we'll get back to business. So we continue while we are here. And then after that, we will have our closing poll and remarks from both INUSI and EWI. So it's going to be 4 exciting, engaging hours. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I would like to share, just welcome our special guests. First of all, I'm going to share my screen again. And obviously, this is something you have seen as you registered for this event. We have as our special speaker, Dr. Sanjay Vaid. I hope I got that correct, the second name. And he's obviously a cybersecurity expert and regional sales director of HCL Technologies for the Nordic countries. And when he comes up, he will be telling you a lot more about himself, but all you need to do, basically need to know, is he has multiple certifications in this field and years of practice. His certifications include from the famous MIT and other institutions, and he will certainly be telling you more about himself as we go along. I would like Eunice to please introduce herself, just with maybe in one sentence. And of course, we'll get back to what Innosai does.
Yeah, welcome everybody. My name is Eunice Hammond Mokley. I am the founder and program director of Innosai. We are a company and as well as an organization that is based in Norway. And what we are doing is bringing, democratizing, STEM in a way that it can reach the youth as early as possible so that you can make the best choices in going forward. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Eunice. So my name is Sophia Ibn Garba, founder and program director of Empowering Women for Excellence Initiative. As I said, headquartered in Nigeria. And very shortly, you'll be able to see a video of what it is that we do as an organization. But generally, I can say that our mission is to provide empowerment and enlightenment for girls and women through multi-sectoral interventions. We will just go straight ahead to watching a short video, and then Innosai again will speak, or maybe we can just go first to Innosai. Would you like to just spend those minutes? I think I can shuffle it around since I've been speaking. Eunice, just a little bit more about Innosai, what kind of services, how people can benefit from what Innosai does. Mute. You're on mute. Yes, the famous phrase.
Yes. So I would say that for Innosai, we are focused on youth. And what we are looking at is how can we actually address the difficulties that, that prevent the acceleration of expert industry skills and professional job performance in Africa. What we are looking at is how can we use STEM in a way to bring enough skills, industry skill sets such that youth can't be able to get jobs wherever they are, irrespective of the continent on which they are. And that's where we come in. It's a pleasure to be on this with Sophia. I met Sophia in a conference and I thought this is a wonderful thing she's doing. We are also focused on women because we know that women can bring change. And when they bring change, it doesn't just affect them. The impact is not just for them, but all the people around them. And that's what we are engaged in. I think that's all I'll say for now. And then we go on. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eunice. So what we're going to do now is watch a very, very short video, and we'll take the next steps after that. 1 second, I will be sharing my screen for this. Okay. Okay. So that's a very short video, just saying a little bit about what we do as Empowering Women for Excellence Initiative. We are going to proceed with our poll just to get a sense of where we all are in terms of knowledge. And let's take a look. I'm launching a poll right now, and I would like you to please just take a few minutes to complete it. Can everyone, Uche, can you confirm that the poll is visible? So we're just going to give a few minutes for this. Okay. We're just going to let the poll, looking at how many have voted. It's interesting to see we have a majority of those who've joined us already from Asia and Africa. I'm just going to let it run for another 30 seconds because not everyone has completed. And we still have people coming in. And anyway, it would be a representative sample. So that's absolutely fine. Okay, we're going to take a look, and this is going to be very helpful for our guest speaker to see where we're at. Just open that up so you can see the results. So we have knowledge rates are medium and low and none at all, which is absolutely fine. That's why we're here. We agree. Oh, extremely relevant takes the that's really good to know that we think cybersecurity is very relevant. We have almost equal split between taking precautions. That's very interesting to see, and no one says that there's nothing to be aware about. So that's also very encouraging. Ladies almost there. We still have the males ahead. And again, as I said, most of those that are joining us today are from Africa, and we also have Asia. This is excellent. So we are going to do the same at the end of the session. And I am going to stop talking and just give the floor to, I'm just gonna close this, give the floor to Sanjay. Over to you.
Hi, my name is Sanjay Ved, and it's a pleasure to be speaking here. I am originally from India, based now in Copenhagen in Denmark. I have some 24 years of experience and had the pleasure to work for Africa region in my previous assignment, and it was a privilege. Otherwise, I've worked in the United States, Europe, Asia, and Middle East, and Russia and CIS countries in these 24 years. And have predominantly worked in the technology industry area, in the IT area, and satellite communication and product design area for governments, defense, and private sector, and research and development organizations. I have studied from MIT Sloan and from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Indian Institute of Management, as well as from University of Salford, where I did my master's from, And I've studied also from Columbia Business School and some other universities as well. I am a certified information security manager, ECISM, from ISACA, which is one of the bodies in cybersecurity area. Uh, I am also a certified incident handler from EC Council as well. And then they have other certification I have. I'm also a CMI level 7 consultant, which is the highest level in consulting from Chartered Management Institute, London. I am also a certified coach as well. And those are some of my credentials to be able to talk about this particular area. Currently, I head the Nordic region for HCL Technologies for cybersecurity and risk. Nordic consists of Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland. And HCL is a $10 billion organization with around 175,000 employees and is a leader among the top 5 companies in the world in the IT security and IT area. I have a presentation prepared for this particular forum and which I will share now. So our agenda is security and how the youth can gear up to acquire the skills in this field. The agenda which we have includes the trends in cybersecurity, which are very relevant because this and technology is one area which is ever evolving. Cybersecurity solutions that are available, cyberbullying, which is very, very important. I'll also talk about cyber ethics, which is very important. Most of you are students, and it's important to be a good citizen, global citizen, and corporate citizen, and an ethical one. Skills in cybersecurity, hard and soft skills. How do you acquire these skills and the jobs in cybersecurity? With that, I'll move into the first slide. This is Dame Dido Harding, the CEO of TalkTalk. She was breached some time back, her organization, and she has, following things to say that, we have as for security, we keep on building our walls higher and higher because these cyber criminals are building longer and taller ladders, and we need to keep pace with that. What it implies is cybersecurity is an ever-changing goalpost. It is not consistent, and you have to consistently adapt to the adversary. Some of the cybersecurity trends further include that PwC has predicted that 55% of the enterprise security plan to increase their cybersecurity budgets in this year, and 51% are adding full-time cybersecurity staff. So there is a lot of headroom to grow, a lot of potential in this space. PwC's latest survey finds 96% of executives had shifted their cybersecurity strategy in COVID-19, and 40% of the executives say they are accelerating digitalization. That's again a good news as far as security and digitalization is concerned. IDC expects that the worldwide security spending would reach to 174.7 billion, which was in till 2024, with a compound annual growth CAGR of 8.1% over 2020 and 2024. IDC further predicts cybersecurity will be the largest and fastest growing segment in the security market, accounting roughly to overall spending throughout 2020 and 25 forecast, attaining a 10.5% CAGR in 5 years. Funding for non-US headquartered cybersecurity company will increase by 20% in 2021, according to Forrester's prediction of 2021. And analysts Mason predicts mobile device security will be the fastest growing cybersecurity category of all, attaining to 17% CAGR. is requiring secure e-commerce more and more because of lockdown. E-commerce and digital commerce has taken place, and hence attacks like man-in-the-middle attack, remote access security, because most of the sessions are remote, regulatory compliance have become high. Mobile usage is high now. More people use mobile, internet bandwidth are available, and they do shopping and transactions over the mobile, and that requires secure identity access for the users, encryption, malware protection, and regulation, so that the transaction is secure. And also it is susceptible because mobile can be used at home as well as in office or in unsecure location over unsecure Wi-Fi connection as well, which can put both the user and the organization into some form of risk. Then we have Industry 5.0. This year, we move from Industry 4.0 to 5.0, which means that apart from big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, we now have the fourth element, which is human. COVID has brought digitalization not just in IT, but in OT as well. OT means operational technologies, plant, machineries, oil and gas, mining sites. So more and more adoption of technologies for like IoT, sensors, operation technologies, security, which is for the SCADA system, programmable logical controller, PLC, and the DCS, distributed control system. Others are on rise. Secure access is becoming important because more and more access are remotely. Take, for example, in the malls in your countries, which might have elevators, the maintenance in a lockdown situation through the elevators are remote, right? And hence these can be also breached. And there are so many other scenarios in factories and other places, in oil rigs within the sea, middle of the sea, or the mining sites. So secure access is very important. Monitoring becomes very important because some sites might be unmanned, or some sites might require a lot of effort in terms of traveling to those sites and safety requirement, especially offshore site in middle of the sea in case of rigging, mining sites, etc. And Africa has a big portion of its economy which is towards energy, oil, gas, and mining. And then, of course, manufacturing itself and pharmaceutical itself has a lot of requirement for these as well. And so does IT. The other is cloud. We have seen platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service on rise with Google, Microsoft, Azure, and AWS on the rise. More and more companies are moving to public and private cloud, and that is requiring security in form of key management for authentication of the users, identity and access management to give the right people the right access and controls, shadow IT and shadow data. That means with, let's say, Office 365, you don't just get the corporate access, but there will be personal Office 365 access as well. There will be Dropbox, there will be SharePoint folders where data can be uploaded and downloaded. So the shadow IT is created, who is accessing what data and where it's getting uploaded is very important. So Cloud DLP, Cloud Azure Access Security Broker become very essential solutions to be put on cloud as well. And then cloud also needs to be monitored because it's a third party. So that's another reason for cybersecurity and high. And then application. If you are going to have a machinery controlled by a mobile or a tablet, if you are going to have access on banking through your phone or tablet, then there will be applications. These applications have to be secured, and these applications will have a journey of getting it developed. This journey, what happens typically is when an application gets developed, if you get a bug at the end of the journey, then you have to redo the whole development, which is quite time consuming and costly to companies. So there is something called DevSecOps where you shift left. Shift left means you don't do testing at the end only, you do it throughout the process. So it's continuous integration. So DevSecOps has come in. The concept of container has come in for the speed, so that there are containers from the whole CI/CD pipeline which are used for applications, and these containers have to be secure. And then the automation process has to be done for various branches of code getting developed. The version control system has to be automated, and this further requires security. And IoT itself is another element. All of these effects are leading to a high demand in the area of cybersecurity. Now, why do we find, what are the challenges we are finding in this area and in this domain? We are finding these challenges where the perimeter is disappearing. People no longer work from the office. They're working from home. They're working from airports. They are working from cafeterias. And again, there was traditional data center. Now it's gone to cloud. Applications are residing on Microsoft cloud. So the parameters is disappearing and have no real-time insight into cybersecurity. For power of cyber criminals, in the sense they're using artificial intelligence. There are three categories of attackers. There's the recreational attacker, there is the syndicate, and then there is the state-sponsored attack. Now, there are, as you have IT service providers, there are companies which offer platform to launch cyber attacks. And these companies provide sophisticated artificial intelligence, machine learning, and different platforms for the attackers to launch the attack. And this provides an edge to the cyber criminals, which can be at times go undetected because they're so sophisticated. Also, cybersecurity, as I mentioned, is an evolving process. There is a lack of skills because there's a lot of catching up to be regularly done. It's like running on a treadmill without stopping the treadmill ever stopping. So you have to have skills which are redeveloped. And then there are vulnerabilities which have to be identified, and you have to have the capability to mitigate them. Lack of budgets, some companies don't have threat intelligence program, and as I gave the analogy in the beginning, the walls of the attackers or the ladders of the attackers to climb the wall of the organization security is rising, and the organization also need to increase their budgets accordingly. And then this thing has got disrupted as well because of COVID, where the whole model where people used to come to office and you had everything prepared under the roof for security is got disrupted, because now suddenly people who are inside that DMZ, data demilitarized zone, are sitting outside the demilitarized zone and accessing the data within the demilitarized zone and data elsewhere on the cloud as well. The lack of agility is another reason security operating center have moved from simply incident and event management to a correlation and then security orchestration and automation response and user and enterprise behavior. To give you an analogy in 1995, in 2005, almost 95% of the attacks were from outside. That means somebody will attack your network, and hence companies put firewalls, IPS, IDS, antivirus in place. Come 2020, where 60% of the attackers are from insider. And why is it so? Because insider have their own digital life. They have life on Facebook, they have life on LinkedIn, they carry their device outside, they have their own mobile devices, and they are susceptible to social engineering, where somebody can lure them into accepting an email. They believe that person is something they trust, or there can be identity theft. The mobile phone, which has credentials, might be going into an insecure internet area or a cafe where it might have got compromised, and hence compromising the identity of the user. So there are so many ways in which the insider threat can affect the security of the organization. And then there is another area which is cyber threat, which are multiplying. There's so many ways in which the attacker can attack an organization as well. And it can be from the OT side of it, it can be the IT side of it as well, or IoT side. So this particular landscape, both from the external and internal, is a challenge which we have today in cybersecurity. And what are the 10 future threats which we are looking? Negligent insider not aware. Insider means the employee of the company, not aware about security policies, things they should do or not, and accepting emails from people they should not be accepting, or believing them to be the ones who they trust. And then, of course, social engineering. APT attacks, which are advanced attacks on the organization, targeted attacks, zero-day attacks, which means there are no signatures for detection of those attacks, cyber attacks itself, zero-day attacks, known software vulnerabilities are another area. We have something like WannaCry, the advanced version or updated version of those malware as well. Malicious insider, that means there is an insider who is a threat to the organization itself and is continuously trying to breach the organization from inside. Social engineering, as I mentioned, everybody now has a live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and that can be a way in which people can create a proxy account of somebody the person knows and ask them to do something which can harm the organization. Distributed denial of service, where you flood the organization with attacks and their bandwidth is choked in terms of communication or internet, and hence crippling their availability of services. Brute force attack is an attack where the passwords can be hacked, and once the adversaries has the access to the password, they can launch an attack on the organization. And phishing attacks, these are the attacks which are over emails. You get an email from somebody you believe you know. There might be alphabets which can be changed. An A which looks like A can be having a little difference in that. There can be some form of change in the email address from the user. It might be a legitimate email address, but very subtle change. And it might have an attachment or content in it, which might have malware loaded in it, or advanced malware loaded in it, which will, the idea is to get it loaded within the organization and have something like a ransomware attack created. So those are the top 10 threats organization will face in the future. The measures to counter these attacks include using secure web services. We all do most of our surfing to the browser, and these browsers can be affected by poison attack, which is a malware in your cache itself. Then there can be SQL injection. There can be man-in-the-middle attack. So we need to make sure that there is some form of security to look at these kind of attacks. And then there are click, hijacking, where within a page there will be some form of link which will seem as part of the page in your banking, let's say, application. You might end up clicking it and end up doing transaction on adversary side. So you need tool in your ecosystem to ensure that the web security is taken into consideration. There is a body called OWASP, which comes up with OWASP top 10 every year, which gives you indication of the top 10 threats on the web security and application security every year, which comprises of broken authentication, SSL inspection, man-in-the-middle attack, SQL injections, etc. And those are vital to have. There are products which also provide those services. The second measure is to ensure secure development of web services to ensure that the security is embedded as a design. Another way of doing this measure is secure provisioning of email services. That means we have anti-spam put in place. We have the anti-phishing solution put in place. We put user awareness training. The biggest link and the most vulnerable link is people. People accept those email, and as many tools you will put in place, they will still be ineffective if the person who is using the emails is not aware and is trained on do's and don'ts there. So the training and awareness is very important. And the fourth thing is global intelligence network. A zero-day attack originates on that particular day. However, there is a huge difference between a time zone, let's say in Africa and Japan. And if an attack originates in Japan and there is an intelligence network which can indicate that zero-day attack has originated before Africa or Asia or US or Europe wakes, then what happens is the threat intelligence can enable the tool looking for emails to look for that particular vulnerability or update the signatures as well. The fourth is about secure remote access to local network. Uh, Originally, we had VPNs, which were formed for point-to-point communication. And over time, and especially with after COVID, people started accessing the network not just for VPN, but also accessing the application, accessing the data. So that meant that once you reach from a point A, which is the user, to the organization, within the organization, you can start doing lateral movement. Now, the lateral movement means that you will be having things other than what you're expected to be accessing accessible to you. Now, in a scenario where this user who is coming to your organization is not the person he's supposed to be, he is somebody else who's taken over the identity of this person and is now accessing. That means he has access to everything in the organization. So we have to have two things. One is we need to make sure that the role-based access is provisioned, discretionary-based access is provision, and principle of least privilege is provision. The second thing is, now that this session is established, this session between this remote user and the organization also has to be secured. So you have to have tunneling and encryption. And then you also have to make sure that the traffic which is flowing within the encryption is also inspected by SSL inspection. So secure remote access makes sure that does these activity. Another thing which it also helps is to make sure that there is no inbound connection. That means nobody is able to come within the network. Every user has an identity. Based on that, the role-based access is defined, and an outbound connection is established by agent to only provide the information his role defines him to have. Then the fifth solution is secure internet connection to local networks. So we ensure that the right firewalls and right IPS and IDS tools are put in place. Secure PC clients are put in place, antivirus, end user firewalls are put in place. Securing of servers, host-based intrusion prevention system, along with EDR and antivirus solutions are put in place. Secure internet telephony, MDM, and other devices are put in devices. And secure wireless connections, you should use WAP2 compliant wireless connection and use right passwords and pins to have access. And secure email connections to make sure that the connectivity for any emails that comes in is secure. So those are the security measures we can take for securing any security possible vulnerability. The emerging security technologies as per Gartner for next 8 years are as follows. In next 1 year, we will have cloud workload protection platforms being very highly used by organization. And this has to do with the adoption of cloud and container, etc. We will have cloud security posture management, which is once you are going into cloud, you might want to see the security of the cloud itself, right? There is a standard service provided by cloud provider, and then you have your own baseline security. So you need to make sure that the gap between the baseline security an organization has and the cloud security is assessed. And there is a body called National Institute of Standards, which has laid down the gap analysis process as well. OT security is on the rise, which is operational technologies. Most manufacturing, pharmaceutical companies, energy, oil and gas companies, and even telecom companies are moving in this direction to make sure their plants are secured. They follow a model called Purdue model, where you divide OT into 5 layers, which includes the network layer, which includes the enterprise layer, the network layer, the server layer, and the layer which takes care of the DCS, PLC, and SCADA, and the valves and actuator layer. And security of this layer is become very, very important. And in next 1 to 3 years, we are seeing secure access services, SASE, getting used. SASE is basically the answer to what changes COVID has brought. the traditional access or the network was based on a DMZ model where you have a firewall, IPS, IDS, an endpoint. All this was based because you thought that the user will be sitting behind this, but user is not sitting behind this. The user is now sitting at his home outside of the network. Now you have to give all these solutions, which is a firewall, IDS, IPS, load balancer, and other form of solutions to the user to where he is. That means it is his home or while he is mobile or traveling. So SASE has concepts of SD-WAN, Zero Trust, ZTNA network. It looks at CASB Cloud Assurance Security Broker, and then it looks at role-based access to be provided to the user. Cyber physical security becomes important thing. This is a layer between OT and the IT, which is a cyber physical layer. This is something which we see in 1 to 3 years, and as per Gartner, homophobic encryption becomes important. More cryptography will come into place with more key management and certificate management as we move into the cloud. And then we have integrated risk management, which is predicted to be more in use for 1 to 3 years. In next 3 to 6 years, we see DRM, Digital Risk Protection Service, description, metadata analytics, and moving target defense, and decentralized identity. We already have non-human identities, which is robotics and bots, whose identity are also accessed. And then in next 6 to 8 years, as per Gartner, digital ethics, which is very, very important today also, will be very, very highly enforced. These are some of the trends in terms of spending. Last year, there was a major spending on security services, followed an increase in service spend, followed by the hardware, security hardware spend, and followed by the software spend, as per IDC. And these are the various industries which will be spending. So healthcare industry, the large enterprise are supposed to have a lot of increase in their spend, whereas small and medium-sized business will have some form of spend. Overall, the healthcare and business system, understandably so, will have the highest amount of spend on security. Banking and financial services is another sector which is going to have a lot of spend. They are already spending because more of their customers have gone digital. Banking is now more digital, and further been enforced by the pandemic. And there is a small increase in smaller banks. Telecom, media, and telecommunication further sees an increase in the spend for cybersecurity. Public sector and social sector will again see a lot of increase in the spend. We're already seeing that. Insurance companies see a small increase, followed by consumer and retail. Global transport and global energy is the most impacted. So there we don't see a lot of spend. Advanced industries, there's no change in their expenditure. So is in professional services. Top security initiatives include awareness and training. Now that we have pandemic, users are at home, the best remediation actor is the user itself. And they're more prone because they're not having the sophisticated security which they had in office. And they neither have all those controls and tools at their home. In fact, their bandwidth is also their personal home internet, which can be not very high speed connectivity. So it is very important that the users are trained, made aware about security, what they should be doing, what should be looking for, etc. Second is monitoring. Security Operations Center. Now that the organization is distributed, the application can be on Microsoft AWS or in Azure or in Google or in the data center. The users are either at home, some in office, some possibly traveling. And if you're a manufacturing company, also the plants and sites, monitoring becomes very important. Now you have more things to monitor in terms of the SOC. and then respond to, and more scenarios to look for, because now you don't have to just look for security incident, which is typically an attack or out of CIA's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But it can be somebody doing crypto mining in your environment and using your environment for the good. It might not be basically an attack, but it's still an incident. And similarly, somebody taking confidential information. We have to redesign a strategy. Most companies are looking at redesigning the strategies. They know that they have to re-architect their security posture and reprioritize their spending and their budgets. Now that their biggest asset outside their data is the employee who's accessing the data sitting outside, they have to re-strategize how this whole design and investments on tool, people, and process has to be made. Governance, again, is a big initiative. We in Europe have GDPR. In South Africa, we have POPI. From the data privacy perspective, so we need to make sure that the PII data and the data is secured. At the same time, shadow IT and shadow data is looked after. Roles, reporting structures, and directives have to be reoriented in light of now the new normal. Operationalization of security, the whole incident management process has to be laid down for various scenarios. What happens if you find a ransomware attack which has severe impact on the organization? It's a high risk. It can shut down and cripple the whole organization. What is the incident management process for that, as against a false positive or as against a user availability issue? So those prioritization has to be done in operations, and those processes have to be laid down. All scenarios have to be laid down. Control scenarios have to be laid down, and they are getting laid down as per the directive by bodies like NIST. Risk assessment becomes very important. Regularly doing vulnerability scan and the threats organization have is very important. Defining the remediation strategy for vulnerabilities, tracking those vulnerabilities are also a very important aspect in terms of risk management. Also identification of gaps by doing penetration testing, by doing risk assessment to find out where are the gaps, where are the vulnerabilities. A possible answer for that is a pen tester who can do penetration testing and find out the vulnerabilities and gaps the organization have, and hence define the risk. And then using the right tools to ensure the risk scoring on which score, which risk is of high risk, which is moderate risk, and which is low risk, so that an organization can prioritize the risk based on the assessment accordingly. Metrics to prepare and report the effectiveness. Now that we have so many gaps which will be identified, now we have to prioritize and define people, process, and system form of risk. And then we need to make sure that the measures are defined on what has to be done in terms of an action once a risk has been identified, and then review it. So some organizations use NIST framework, some use SANS 20 framework to see the gap assessment and how they score in various areas within the risk of the organization. Regulatory and legislative compliance, there are legal compliance, legal requirements in terms of access to the hardware, software, data of the organization, customer data, having visibility of that, etc. And depending on industry, for example, if you're a healthcare company, you will be required to be compliant to HIPAA if you are or equivalent on that particular country, which is for health and health industry. Similarly, energy industry has to have NERC or relatively compliant as per the region. So there are regulations which are geographical of nature and business nature. Those have to be compliant. And identity and access. Now that we have identity as a new parameter, your access to the organization can be from your company's own laptop or from your mobile or from your own laptop. What you have is password, user ID, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication to authenticate you to who you are. So the new boundary or the perimeter is identity. And it's very, very crucial that we define identity. We provide role-based access, discretionary-based access, need-based access, task-based access, mandatory-based access, and then it is linked to the federation service. Similarly, we have privilege access management for the admins for ensuring that the passwords are protected. Principle of least privilege is put in picture. At the same time, sessions are recorded, as well as we have analytics in terms of any risks to the organization. So those are the top cybersecurity initiatives organization have. And I will now go to the next chapter on the cybersecurity area. Before I go further, are there any questions?
So we can type questions in the chat box, and Dr. Vaid will be happy to respond if you have any questions.
Yeah. How are we planned for breaks? I think we are right now in 1 hour from the session has started.
Yes.
Where do we want to take breaks? Because this is a new chapter in terms of what are the cybersecurity services. You want me to continue this chapter, or you want to take a short break?
So let's ask the audience, would you like a 5-minute break? Because this is not the big major break. Would you like a 5-minute break, or shall we continue? You can give us some reactions or type in the chat. What do you think? Just let us know if you'd like. Please continue. Praneet says yes.
Right. Fair enough.
Anyone else? Do you think, would you like a 5-minute break? I feel like we're into it, so it might even break the flow.
Fair enough.
Any
So
other?
I'll continue.
Yeah.
And thanks, Praneet and Uche Brown, for your interest. Thank you so much. It's very encouraging. And please do ask any question if you have. I'll move ahead. So the areas of cybersecurity includes application security. Application security is a complete syllabus in itself and a world in itself, where we are looking at agile, DevSecOps, CI/CD pipeline, containers, and then we are looking at codes, a developer developing a code, and that code which he's developing has to be secured. And then multiple developers writing the same binary, and when these binary codes come together, again getting tested. And then we're looking at the environment in which this code is written. And then we are looking at the compilers itself getting secured as such. And then we are looking at the user or the identity of the user himself. Traditionally, this was done at the end of our development cycle, where once a development team finishes a sprint, or various sprints, and develops a binary or a source code, then testing took place. What used to happen then is if the code was found to be defective, then you go all the way back and start the work again. So if it's taken 4 weeks or 4 months, you go back and start the process. So it was costly for the organization and time consuming. So we had the agile methodology, and then now the DevSecOps, where you shifted left. What you do is right at the build stage, we define the parameters which will be looked at in terms of who does what has to be looked at in terms of deviation, compliance requirement, etc. And then when the development happens and the code comes in forms of bots, those bots are further scanned for malicious bot as against legitimate bots. And then at that stage also, we do something called SAST, statistical application security testing, to see real-time vulnerabilities as the code is written. And at the same time, do something called RASP, runtime application security protection, which is on a real-time, testing the codes while it is getting developed. At this stage, and we also do fuzzing. Fuzzing is where you are also at the same time trying to see what an adversary would have done if he would have attacked you in a very stimulated environment. and find out the resilience of the code and the vulnerability in the code. Once you move from the development cycle to the testing cycle, then you conduct a full-blown SaaS, statistical application security testing, and dynamic application security testing. Dynamic application security testing now looks at the whole environment as such and looks at vulnerability in the whole pipeline as such. Then you have something called IAS, iterative application security testing, which looks at various aspects of the code. And you also introduce RASP once more for real-time application security testing. And once you have done this element of security testing, and you have found or vulnerabilities, you do the patching, or you do the corrective action. And if the codes are good enough to the next stage, to the deployment stage, then you again have the vulnerability assessment, penetration testing taken care of to look at the environment as well. Now, at this stage, if you're looking at container, then the container security also comes in to look scan the codes. Now, depending on if you're using container at the deploy stage, or you're having the containers used throughout the CI/CD pipeline, the container scans will happen to see that when the code moves from one stage to the other, there is no vulnerability. And now that the code is ready and you have to upload to an FTP server, then you look at the session, you look at the man-miller tag, you look at the FTP server for any vulnerability. And all of this is further getting monitored through the security operating team to look at any deviation which is done, which is linked to something called threat modeling, which looks at the compliance process, as well as the process which have laid down in terms of where a code development cycle will move from. Any deviation is an incident where the incident management team comes in and intervenes. So this is application security. The advanced persistent threat, on the other hand, is the zero-day attack, targeted attack, advanced attacks there. And for this, we use tools such as EDR, endpoint detection response, and the managed detection and response to look for either signature-based, either behavior-based, or AI-based anomalies in these malware. And depending on if it's a signature-based, you update those tools. They're typically linked to the SOC. They automate the SOC as well, which is Security Operating Center. The advanced persistent threat is now moved to the next level from endpoint protection to network protection. So you now have advanced persistent threat look more both in network and in endpoint, and further integrated in the Security Operations Center for any advanced threat. Then we have the cryptography. All the data we have is either at rest, either in motion, or is it used. In all these three forms, we have to protect this data. And we have now a second layer. Apart from protection, we have to comply to regulatory reasons. For example, GDPR, which is the Data Privacy Act in the European Union, talks about no unauthorized person should be able to access or see the data of a customer or of an employee, which he should not be able to see. Second is the right to be protection, right to be forgotten. That means if I have chosen this right, you should not have my data. However, if I do not have your data and somebody from my sales or business development or some other organization reaches out to you, I have a legal suit to me. So I have to mask the data. Mask the data for this compliance region, for right to be forgotten. At the same time, the right person only be able to see. So because I will have the data in my database system, which will be accessible to everybody based on their role. But the granular form of access in terms of data, because if they are able to access the data of what they have to, they can still see the other data. And that seeing the data is a legal issue. And it is also have a confidentiality issue. So we mask the data and we encrypt the data so that it is masked for insider, not to be able to see when he is doing the transaction, let's say salary of a person or a health record of a person or HR record of a person or whatever might be the form of data. And then the data is getting transacted, encrypting the data in the transaction. There are new concept on cloud, because in cloud, this data is now in a third party. So you do splicing of the data. So the data is not, in one place, it's spliced, only an algorithm can bring it together. So, and there are various techniques, cryptography, cipher, and masking, obfuscation, salting that is used in this particular area. And in order to do that, we do classification of data, discovery of data, because now the data, apart from the IT, is also originating from OT. So it is unstructured, structured. So data has to be classified as secret, confidential, top secret, internal, and also as data which is public in nature. And you have to provide security controls accordingly. And you also make a choice on whether this data, depending on it is top secret, whether it should be in public cloud, it should be retained, whether it should be in or in private cloud. So those decisions are also driven by this particular area. Then cybersecurity services include monitoring of security. It includes any patch updates or any form of intervention or incident response which has to be done. Risk management and assurance looks at various risks in terms of third party, in terms of business, in terms of IT controls, in terms of gaps. And based on those risks, we provide vulnerability management service, risk remediation service, risk scoring service, and then corrective actions to remediate or overcome those risks. Cloud-based security is the most recent phenomena, and the one which is of very high importance today to company, as they are making the programs to go towards the cloud. Now, cloud is typically having two elements, which is cloud native security, which is provided by cloud service provider, as well as the security services, which the company which takes the cloud services has to provide. And hence the service provider like HCL, my company, or somebody else, they might choose to integrate with. Typically, the base solution includes the DDoS kind of services, some form of firewalls, PIM services, and if it is Azure or Microsoft's and some form of Azure related services which are provided. On top of it, you're expected to manage the keys if you're multi-cloud. They also provide key management solution, but encryption as such, advanced firewalls as such, sniffing tools as such, identity governance, etc., and are something which you expect the service provider to provide, or the customer who is taking the services from the cloud services provider like AWS, Azure, or Google to have. Also, then the monitoring part, management of servers, security of the servers, or the virtual machines are also the responsibility of the system integrator to take care of them. And of course, NTRS. Governance risk and compliance, the various IT compliance like the ones POPI in South Africa or GDPR in Europe, or something which have to be looked at, HIPAA, NERC, and other industry compliance or compliance. Those are something which have to be assessed, which have to be then adhered to with the gaps, and the companies have to be supported in meeting those governance risk and compliance area. This also includes third-party risk the organizations might have, identifying those risks and giving a view to the companies in order to mitigate them. Enterprise security management includes management of firewalls, antivirus, EDR, IPS, IDS, firewall assurance services, etc. And on top of it, providing the SOC services for monitoring, incident response, incident remediation, and forensic services there. So that's an overview on what are the areas in which cybersecurity services can be offered. The 10 steps in terms of cybersecurity includes managing privileged users. There will be users who are admins in your organizations, who have privilege access. There will be senior management who will have privilege access. Now, these admins, these super users will have access to confidential data. They might have the privileges to make changes to crucial organization passwords, access, etc. So they become in themselves very important and a risk center. So we need to make sure that we bring in solutions where the passwords are generated for every session that is created. The sessions are recorded and analytics is done on top of that. And the principle of least privilege is put into place so that if a super user or privileged user is compromised, the risk to the company is minimal. Incident management becomes a very, very important aspect. Now you might have three ways in which you might capture an incident. One is the user calls you or user emails you that, hey, I am having this issue. It has to be resolved. The second is that the ITSM gives you a ticket that there is these issues you need to resolve. The third is that you identified through the tools like SIEM an incident, and you have got an alert that this is something which is wrong and you need to do something about it. Once you have this, then you have to identify whether this is actually a security incident or whether it's a false positive and something to do with the user itself, or it has to do with some failure of a hardware or software component. Then you pass it on to the right team to take care of it. But if you have identified it as a security incident, then you have to take corrective actions to mitigate it. This means if it's a malware, then you have to go to the owner of that asset, have the access to that asset, and then try to find out the kind of malware and remediate it. If it is somebody who's done any compliance related issue or is violating any access or any legal part of the country where you're operating, then those have to be recorded. And then the next step in terms of either intimating the CISO or chief risk officer and at the same time remediating has to be done. And various scenarios of incident response in terms of criticality and the severity has to be defined, and the mean time to respond, MTTR, mean time to remediate, mean time to recover has to be defined. And this also has to be part of your BCP DR or business continuity and disaster recovery as well. Monitoring becomes very important so that the third part of what I said in the previous one, which is you observing an incident is captured. So depending on the ask of the organization, 24/7, 8/5, which is 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 16-hour days, 5 days a week, or 7 days a week, or 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is monitored for various indicator of compromise, IOCs, and for any different use cases. These use cases have to be developed on a regular basis and updated on a regular basis. This can be right from a malware to any anomaly in user, which has to be captured. This might be fingerprinting a user, and which can help you to see that if a user has access to certain areas of the network, and you're fingerprinted that he typically doesn't go to those partners, and suddenly he's attempting to go to those part of network, or he's signing in from multiple devices at the same time, it is through two different locations. That means it's an incident. So you need to have the use cases defined so that it raises alert and you have to monitor for those. Home and mobile working is becoming crucial. People are working from home at their bandwidth of their homes, and the security controls, secure remote access, split tunneling for traffic for the Microsoft, which is typically Office 365, emails is routed separately to against traffic for the data center, traffic or application and internet. So that becomes very crucial. It's like your load balancer. And then you put all the security controls in terms of SSL inspection, in terms of man-in-the-middle attacking, session hijacking, etc., email spear phishing onto that laptop itself. And that home user has to be secured accordingly. secure configuration, you put the right configuration in place, right policies, up-to-date policies, so that right access is provided, right sites are accessed, right data is accessed, right people are given role-based access, so that compliance doesn't have a problem. There's no shadow IT and shadow data, people accessing data they're not supposed to access, the people uploading data for what they're not supposed to do. All this will be covered by the secure configuration. Removal media control, USB based access where people can take data or interact a system by USB, that has to be looked at. Malware prevention, so things like antivirus, EDR have to be put in place so that advanced attacks, antivirus or the viruses are protected from. And user education awareness is another very important area. Now that we have covered all this, the user has to be aware about it. He needs to know about them. He needs to know what he has to do and what he doesn't have to be doing. So user training and awareness in the language of whichever country you're doing is very important. And network security, the firewall, the IDS, the IPS, etc., have to be configured right. Now that we are looking at the network becoming boundaryless and user working from home and other places, we need to make sure that the policies of remote access is put in place, split tunneling is put in place, proxy setting and cloud proxy settings are put in place accordingly. So those are the top 10 security steps, and I'll give it a pause again for any questions. Yes, I see somebody hands is up.
Allow me to respond. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fine. Go ahead.
Okay. In your talk, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. In your talk, when you use the word container, and I would like if I can get like a better explanation on what containers are and their use in terms of application developments.
Yeah. So containers are typically virtual machines which are having faster boot time, easy to install. They are used in the DevSecOps environment, typically in the deployment stage, but now used at various stages of CI/CD pipelines. There, they are one step ahead of the virtual machines. That means they take less processing, faster boot up time there, and save the time for the developers. But they have low security, which is there in them as such. And today, many companies are using containers for their whole CI/CD pipeline. There are products like Dockers. That's an example of container that is highly used by companies today for security. So this also does segmentation work. So you have multiple containers used, multiple application and codes are hosted in multiple containers. And what happens is that these containers ensure that if there is any vulnerability, that doesn't spread across to other containers, and it's just confined from that perspective.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. So I'll move to the next one then. These are the where does the cyber threat originates from? We have crackling, information warfare, countries and companies spying on each other to have competitive edge, cyber espionage, cyber crime, cyber terror, and hackism. And these are done by the way of spam, by way of identity theft, where the identity of various stakeholders in companies is stolen, and through those identities, adversaries accesses their and organization systems, and depending on the objective, if it is compromising of confidentiality in terms of getting access to the confidential data, integrity or availability, they launch the attack. So if they have to get access to the confidential data, then they will take over the identity and get the access to the confidential data of the organization. If it is availability, they will make sure that they lead you to DDoS attack or some form of attacks which leads to the availability of functioning of the company. If it is integrity, they will end up changing some confidential data, which can lead to the loss for organization. Then we have malicious code such as virus, bomb, Trojan, etc., which are unleashed in the organization either to cripple or spy, again for compromisation of confidential integrity and availability. Phishing attacks, which are again attacks where email carries a malware in form of attachment or in terms of the content of body of the email itself. Denial of service attacks are again attacks where you flood the organization traffic with traffic so that the organization is overwhelmed and it effectively shuts down. Packet snooping is another similar form where you try to snoop the packets and find out information about the packets and lead to compromise of confidentiality itself. And then there are ransomware attack, which make sure that the adversary takes over the control of the systems, and then in lieu of giving access to the companies, ask for ransom from the company. The measures for security for protection include access control, so that you give only right people the access, and non-authorized person is not having the access to the system. Communication protection, so you from point-to-point connectivity, you make sure that you have right encryption, you have SSL inspection, you have right firewalls, rules and policies, and then you have the intrusion prevention, intrusion detection layers also put in place. Physical and environment protection, make sure you have the right physical and the environment protection put in place. In terms of system protection, you make sure all the system, the PCs, laptop servers are protected with the right tools. You have a continuity plan. And this is a part of the larger business continuity plan, where you have various scenarios covered. So what happens if you're DDoS? So you have a load balancing. You have another route through which the traffic can be routed, and then you also have security consideration. So if you had a firewall in the let's say an IPLC or a lease line or an ISDN, if you do a load routing, you make sure that similar firewalls and are in place, so that the purpose of the attacker is not to make you go to the other route because he knows that the other route doesn't have a firewall. So you need to make sure that your business continuity plan has a backup route, but that backup route has to have all controls in place. Incident reporting, any incident that is identified has to be reported, and then recorded as well for future learning. And the legal compliance has to be adhered to. There are various tools to look at this as well, and those processes has to be put in place for them. So those are the security measures for protection. I'll give it a pause again for any question and have a sip of water. Yes, sir, you have a question. I'm presuming it's from the last question.
No, this is Praneet. He's typing, so I can read the question in the chat.
Yeah.
So, afternoon, sir. My question is, he's typing, how do we protect sensitive information handled and stored by third-party vendors?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Praneet. So the Third-party vendors will include cloud service provider. It will be including your system integrated partner like HCL. It will be including your partners in your supply chain, who are your suppliers as well. One, of course, is you have to have it as a part of your security policy document and business continuity and disaster recovery plan to start with, where you give an outline. Second is that you ensure, and most companies are doing it now, that they have third-party identity and access put in place so that those party have access based on the identity and access management tool and the rules you put in them. That is discretionary based access, role based access, and mandatory based access which you define for them. The third thing which you do, in which one of our customer did wanted, let's say if you are an organization which is into commodity trading, for example, a commodity, or your bank in commodity, and so you have a B2B profile of customers who are going to access, that particular platform for commodity and commodity trading. And it's in the same time, there will be other customers also whose data will be there. So we do data masking on that, so that even if once you have established the role-based access, and now the right person is only able to access that particular data for which they are supposed to be looking at, they are not able to see the data of the other parties. So that's this second thing. Third thing is you put a layer of encryption on top of it, so that you ensure that even if somebody attempts to have access to that, it is encrypted there. When it comes to cloud, therefore, there are splicing solutions further done, where they splice the data and spread the data into multiple areas within the cloud, so they don't reside in one area. And then you have to have an algorithm to put it together there. So organization use various form of techniques. One of those techniques is Cypher based, where the data is crumbled or synthetic data is put in place. So the data you're looking at is actually not the real data. So essentially, it is a combination of identity access management, role-based access, as well as cryptography in terms of data masking and data encryption. That's the two main things one needs to do. There are various techniques which are used by organization in doing it, depending on the key, SHA-1, SHA-2, SHA-3, SHA-5, SHA-4, or MDI, what standards you want to use. Those can also be further defined. And identity access management, again, works on based on what you have. For example, if you have it hosted, the data is hosted on Microsoft. So Microsoft has their own, preference of IGA partners, which they have listed. Then you provide solution based on those partners in order to provide identity governance and identity access for those companies. So I hope that answers you, Praneeth.
We have a couple more questions. About Praneeth, has that been answered? If you could just indicate. Yes, thank you. All right, so Uche asks, aside from installing an antivirus on a PC, is there any other thing one needs to do to prevent attacks? And then we have another question.
Yeah, so antivirus, have been very, very effective for decades now. But over the years, what has happened is that there are zero-day attacks, there are spear phishing attacks, there are anti-spams and web attacks which are happening. So what has happened is that while antivirus is going to look for any malware that is coming into your system, it might not be able to attack the zero-day attacks or advanced attack. So for that, you have solutions like EDR, endpoint detection and response tools, or XDR for looking at those kinds of targeted attacks. Then email becomes very important because if you have an email that is coming to you, the two ways, you can have infringement. One is people start sending you spam mails which you don't want. The second is they send fear phishing mail which has malware in the mail itself. So you need to scan those mails. So you need to make sure you have the right email security tool to do that. And similarly, a browser through which you do the browsing can itself have a cache in it, or a poison attack in the cache. Which poison is an attack where they infiltrate the browser itself. And every time you browse, you're actually going to the adversary site or infected site, or the session can be hijacked. So there are antivirus companies which have packaged tools. You can look at those tools, but you definitely need more than antivirus today.
Okay, Uche, please confirm if your question has been answered in the chat, please. Please keep the questions coming because, yes. So Olamile Khan says, is it possible to have multiple layer privileged user access control that requires multiple privileged users authentication before data can be accessed, as I believe this can prevent negligent insiders attacks or attackers?
Yeah. So there are two things which are done. One is identity and access. So now most of the identity and access solutions have identity analytics built into it. So what happens is that there is a solution called UEBA, User and Enterprise Behavior Analytics. UEBA, what it does is that it for 3 months you put the record of all the employees in that, and it fingerprints all the user in terms of their behavior, how they typically behave, and then it starts looking at anomaly. What companies further do is they put threat intel into it. Now threat intels are from various sources. One of the source of threat intel is deep dark web. Deep dark web is where they look at your social engineering life, somebody you're contacted, somebody you're in contact with, and that person account means compromised, somebody who has fictitious account that has got created. All that intelligence is gathered and fused into it. So now if that intelligence data has found out that the person ABC has his friend's data compromised and his passwords are already compromised, then there is a red alert on that user. So the analytics will further decrease his privileges. That's number one. Number two, if you are an admin who is, apart from getting access to data, can change the data, can change the passwords, can change the configuration. So what happens is they use something called privilege access management. What it does is every time the admin tries to access, it will generate the password at that time only. And for every access, a new password is generated, so that even if an adversary has taken over the identity, he still needs to go to the privilege access management to conduct his role of a privileged user. So there, one, he is authenticated. Second is for a malicious insider, the session is getting recorded also. So if he's making any wrong change, the session is recorded. So there is a fingerprint left, which is getting recorded, which can be audited further. And then this one also has the analytics. So once you have the identity access management, which does role-based access, discretionary-based access, privilege access. On top of identity and access management, you have UEBA, User and Enterprise Behavior Analytics. And the User and Behavior Analytics, Enterprise Behavior Analytics has that intelligence feeding into it, which further enriches identity access management, adaptive analytic capability. And as far as privileged user is concerned, who are admin or super users or VIP users, for them, privilege access management is there. That means every time they want to have the access of privilege access, which they should, they will be having a new password generated for them, and their session is recorded, and the analytics is done, and principle of least privileges further enforced on them. So these are the two ways in which multi-factor authentication time or multi-layer of identity access is done for users.
Thank you, Sanjay. Olamile Khan, please confirm if your question has been answered. Next question, while we go through the next question, is from Hamad, and he says, is all data secure and backed up on a routine basis? So I guess he means, should all data be secure and backed up? And if it is backed up, where will it be kept? And be protected?
So what happens is that you do, first thing is data discovery, and find out the structured, unstructured data from the IT and IoT and OT. Then you do data classification in terms of top secret, secret, confidential, inside or internal, or and public. So you will want to make sure that the top secret and secret data resides within the organization. You might want confidential data can be possibly on private cloud. Public data uh, or inside data can be on private cloud. And similarly, the backup for those will be also accordingly. The DR will be accordingly. That means that public data can be having multiple site hosting by Microsoft. And similarly, you can have it on multi-cloud environment as well. The data which you have either in private cloud, then you will want it to be backed on another private cloud or on your own data center. And similarly, something in your data center is there, you might want it to be on a multi-site environment based on your BCP-DR plan, which you have in place, and the business continuity process you would have put in place. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so Hamid has confirmed, as well as Olamide Kwan and Sanjay, just
you.
in terms of timing, just to let you know that we're about 35 minutes to the major break.
All right, fair enough. So I'll move ahead to the next slide. So this is important. I thought I'll share this with you. A lot of companies, security is a negative goal. And you don't earn money by securing, but then you have to constantly go and ask for investment, because if you don't protect the organization, the organization might have losses out of the downtime they have, the reputation losses. Some companies have loss of life also, depending on the industry. Industry like energy, oil and gas, especially, can lead to, and in case of mining as well, can lead to loss of life also due to security. Safety become very paramount, and even in manufacturing. And sometimes the timing is important, and irreversible damage can be done, but still you have to figure out what is the return of security investment. So the return of security investment is calculated by annual loss of expectancy into the mitigation ratio minus the cost of the solution. Let's say I end up telling you should bring next generation firewall, so there will be a cost divided by the cost of solution. The figure will give you the return on security investment. This is a common thing which is discussed on how do you quantify the money we've been asking to invest in security. So this is some answer. There are more formulas to it, but this is fundamental in terms of giving the justification of investment for security. The 5 barriers in addressing security challenges: lack of sufficient budget. As I said, this is an ongoing battle, an ongoing advancement. And this has further got completely disrupted since COVID, because the line between what is a network and what is security has got blurred. And the concept of SASEs have made it blurred. In your company, when you go to work, you have a local area network, wider area network, metropolitan area network. Now that you're working from home, that LAN, WAN, and MAN is your internet of home. Your personal internet has become everything there. So now all that security has to be put in there. So this is the new parameter. And the way of looking at funding has changed from where we were looking at it. Other thing is inadequate availability or cybersecurity professional. There is a huge gap between the number of cybersecurity professional required as against the cybersecurity professional available. There is also a big gap of what has happened post-COVID. A lot of things which were happening a year and a half before, within the span of one of half years, become ancient. So updated skills of security professional has become very, very important. Also, there are other dynamics because with work from home, the security professionals are meant to be working remotely, and that brings a new challenge. Lack of documented process is another challenge. The incident response process. How do you prioritize security? How do you have the security policy determined? How do you define the awareness? And how do you define the acceptance of usability? If you have all the tools I told you about an application put in place and the application developer doesn't use the tool, because he thinks it slows him down, then it is of no use. So you need to have a well-documented process and well-recorded process as well, and you have to have visibility. And that brings to the point of visibility, the lack of visibility and influence within the enterprise. Now, big organization, have big power centers, etc., etc. So what security things is right has to be bought by everybody. It has to be bought by the application team. It has to be bought by the infra team. It has to be bought by business, CIO team, and the CEO team. And then the security has to have the visibility, because if you put all security controls in the infrastructure, you have firewall, IPS, IDS, and the application is completely empty and you don't have visibility, then you have a possibility backdoor for the adversary to enter. Similarly, if you have all these in IT and application and you have nothing in the OT, which also has an historian server, human machine interface, it has a SCADA server, it has a firewall, it has all the control, it has a connectivity because your supply chain servers are lying there. So that integration is also there, so that the attack can come from that side also, and vice versa. So there has to be a holistic view for the companies, and it can't be lying in silos. It can't work in silos. So consensus creation is a very important aspect as far as security is concerned. And those are also the barriers. So these are the checklist in terms of what we should have. Should have a trustworthy IT vendor, both the system integrator and the product companies which they're using. A lot of malwares have been found in products which are called untrusted software, which have been lying in the company's environment and spying on them, or have some Trojan horse in them. So we have to be very careful what we bring into the estate. Security software up to date, we need to make sure that the patches, the versions, and if it is end of life, it has to be changed. So if there is an update, it has to be updated. There's a version, it has to be updated. And if a product you're using has got end to life, it is very highly advisable that it has to be changed. Regular pen testing has to be done to ensure that you find out the gaps and the vulnerabilities which is in the network before an adversaries find it out and hack into your network. And at the same time, you have to make sure that you have the right data protection, because even if you hire somebody to do pen testing and he is able to see the gap, once he sees the gap, he's also going to see your data and you will have a legal issue. So you need to make sure that before you give it to it, a red team or a pen testing team to do it, you have that particular department. If you're a healthcare company, you have patient records, those are must before you do it. So both have to be done correctly. Backup to the cloud and hard disk has to be done. So you need to have complete backup and disaster recovery plan and process in place. Periodical change in the Wi-Fi password, it has to be WAP compliant. Security policies need to be up to date. If you have a policy which was pre-COVID, which says what people will do when they come to office, if nobody's coming to office, that policy has to be planned as per what they would be doing when they're at home, and they have to be given directives and instructions accordingly. Enforce use of strong passwords, and of course, needless to say, keeping it secret, not sharing the password, and at the same time not putting in chats, etc. And of course, protection from having it hanging it on your PC, etc. So, or of course, the IT has to make sure that it's a brute force attack protection as well. And then we have two-factor authentication. That means apart from password, there is a PIN which comes on your phone, or some form of other multi-factor authentication put in place, or biometric place put in place to ensure that there is further security put in place. So those are the checklist in security is concerned. From a security maturity process, where you are, there are various stages. There is an ad hoc stage where things are very informal. Hey, we have one security person. He does application also. He does network also. He does, OT as well. He does this thing, and that's how we manage. So that's where you have this ad hoc basis that if the need arises, it'll come. It's reactive. It's inconsistent performance. And then there is a developing one. You move from the ad hoc to developing one, which is a likely repeatability, some consistency, lack rigorous process and discipline. And then there is a practicing one where you have defined control, documented standards, and consistent performance. And then you have the optimizing stage where you have effective control, user process metrics, and target improvement. You know what you need to achieve. You are on SOC 1.0, you need to go to SOC 4.0, 5.0, and bring in automation, UEBA, and analytics. So you have a clear path laid in picture for it. Leading it, there is an integrated strategy, as I mentioned. For example, BCP, business continuity, cannot be in isolation. If you have to fulfill an order as a manufacturing company and the site goes down because of security, you have to have it in a plan. If you can't invoice to the customer and earn money, it will be hitting your cash flow. So that again has to be security led. So you have to have a plan which is integrated. Innovative changes have to be put in place. That means if tomorrow you're going to use connected device and big data, then you have to have innovation put in place, and seamless controls have to be put in place so that they work in harmony there. So that is a particular, in terms of the maturity curve for organization security. In terms of traditional versus new operations, traditionally companies had logs, events, and alerts, and but now there are much more to look for. We just discussed, somebody asked about antivirus. We have email, you have social activity. People are looking at Facebook, LinkedIn, they're clicking content, there are pictures which can be connected, which can be infected. There can be content which might have malware. You just read the content, open the content, and you are unleashing the malware. The web page text can be having basically click hijacking or session hijacking in that itself, or malware, or external threat intelligence feed, full packet and DNS capture, business process data, customer transactions can be unsafe, identity can be compromised there, configuration information can also be an issue. The system audit trails that you needed, network flow and anomalies can have to be looked at. So there are much more beyond these as well on the cloud, on application side. So as against what we were looking for, the underlying estate has evolved to a much larger area. So we need a roadmap. This roadmap needs to include access, where we do record all the assets which we have. We conduct risk assessment for those assets. Then we do build, where we create InfoSec policy. That policy has to be comprehensive and has to be circulated to all the employees, and they need to be made aware about that policy. And we need to create policy information of assets. And then we have to choose where we do establish controls to enforce policies, identify technologies to plug in gaps as well. So if you're using NIST RMF framework, which is protect, detect, respond, and remediate, and within that protect, detect, respond, and remediate, there are subcategories, and those subcategories need tools in order to plug in those gaps. Then you have a roadmap to plug in those gaps. Once you have a roadmap prepared, and you do rating of where you are, let's say 1 to 5, you are in 3, and You start working toward deployment and do the reassessment. So you deploy, test the defined controls, implement those controls, and then after 3 months, 6 months, or a year, whatever the policy which you have prepared, where you will do the assessment, you do the assessment on where the gaps are and how you're rated from where you were originally. And then you educate people, make awareness for the employees, partners, for third-party risk, which might be the system integrator partner like HCL, or it might be the value chain partner, your supplier, and then establish a process for reporting non-compliance and track the actions on those non-compliance. And retest, establish defense periodically, conduct system audits, align with emerging threats. So that's a roadmap which we have. The 10 compartments of security ethics. So ethics becomes very important to be a good global citizen and to be a good corporate citizen. You shall not use a computer to harm other people. Some countries it's illegal and they have laws for them. You shall not interfere with other people computer work, which is again legal in many countries. You should not snoop around in other people's computer files, which is completely no. You should not use a computer to steal. You should not use computer to bear false witness. You should not copy or use proprietary software for which you're not paid without permission. You should not use other people's computer resource without authorization or proper compensation. You should not appropriate other people's intellectual output. And you should not think about the social consequences of the program you are writing or the system you're designing. And you should always use a computer in the ways that ensure consideration and respect for all fellow humans. And I'm sure all of us follow those, but I thought it was important to highlight this cyber ethics. Just to recapture what all is included in cybersecurity. So you have infra security, which includes endpoint, firewall, IDS, IPS, etc. Cloud security, which has Class B, CWLP, key management, data security, classification, DLP, encryption, masking. Application security, which include DAS, SAS, VAPT, fuzzing, RASP. Govern risk and compliance, which includes IT governance, industry compliance, OT compliance. OT security, which includes SCADA, HMI security, PLC, DCS security, which is distributed control system and discovery. And all of this has to be managed through a security operating center, a SOC with the modern SIEM, UABA, SOAR, intelligence plugged in with a monitoring team, monitoring the incident, analytic team, doing the analysis, and then passing into incident response and forensic tip, which further makes a recorded of it for learning and reported to CISO and Chief Risk Officer. So that's about cybersecurity on a nutshell. I will go to the next session. Should we take a break before we get in the next one on skills?
I think we're fine to keep going because we will take a break in about 20 minutes.
This is a completely different section. So we started some 1.5 hours back.
Is it okay that we take like 5 minutes break so the speaker can have a glass of water or tea or something?
Yes.
Okay.
5 minutes? Okay.
All right, so let's even fresh our mind because this is a new chapter we'll get into.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back in we're back to start in 5 minutes, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back.
Yeah, it's funny how fast 5 minutes passes. We actually have a question for you, Sanjay.
Yes.
Oh, just 1 second. Olamileko, are you here?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, please go ahead with your question.
Okay. My question is, I identified a security problem of an organization, a financial organization. How do I pitch the security problem to the organization, and how do I assess the ROSI, the ROSI ratio of the security risk? And is it possible to profit from alerting and suggesting an improvement to the security problem?
Yeah. So essentially, overview. Typically, if you go to any bank, they will have some level of maturity. And you will be entering a brown field. So the best thing to do is getting into a dialogue with them. Tell them what you can do, and then learn from them, understand them what is the pain area. And they will invariably tell you the pain area and ask you for a solution in those pain areas. There can be more than one pain area. It can be, and bank predominantly confidentiality is up there. The priorities are confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Uh, so hence, it has to be predominantly with data in most cases. And once you've identified them, then you can come up with a solution to the bank as a next meeting you have with the bank. Uh, and in doing that, if you're using, let's say, I presume you're using RMF framework of NIST, protect, detect, respond, and remediate. Based on that, you can come up with a solution. Let's say, protect what data. So you then would talk about data discovery and data classification. Detect what? Detect any compromise. So then you can have something like a SOAR or an EDR or some form of product which does the detection for them, or a CASB or a DLP which detects any deviation of confidentiality and respond. So then you will have the SOAR. Sorry, the respond will have the SOAR in terms of remediation action and recover. Then you will have the team which will come in and do the incident response and forensic. So you will have to then classify depending on what framework you use. If you're using ISO framework, then you will plan it accordingly and categorize your solution accordingly. So that will be an effective way. But I don't think so, at least with whatever my head have seen and my eyes have seen and my head has processed, that you just go in on the first meeting and do the solution. You have a discovery phase with the customer where you understand the customer and customer understand what you can do, and then you both of you agreed to then go back and find a solution for what they want, and then you come back with a solution. Does that answer?
Thank you very much, sir.
Um,
Yes, for sure.
Hamid asks another question. He said, does penetration testing break a system? And how is data protected during and after penetration testing?
Yeah, so that's what I was pointing out. SANS, a body which does provide standards for cybersecurity and penetration testing also. What they have defined is that once you do penetration testing, and penetration testing is a way in which you look at the loopholes a company might have, which might allow you to know and your vulnerabilities, and allow the pen tester or the red team to ensure that they are able to access the network. So it is breaking into the organization, but ethically. And once you have done that, then you have a legal issue, because for some time you will have uh, some access to the data, or the data will be visible to you. You see it or not, but you're still having visibility. So what SAN says is, before you do that, whichever department you think you're going to do the penetration testing, because in the world of penetration testing and vulnerability management, there is the security team, there is a pen tester, and there is an application owner, and there's an IT. That application owner permission is needed to be taken, and IT permission is needed to be taken. And with their consensus, you move into the next step. Number one. Number two is you do the masking for the data, so that even if the pen tester is able to penetrate the asset of the owner of that asset or that part of network, he is not able to see it, and he is complying with the legal laws, which are meant that you do not have access to the unauthorized access to the data. So I hope that answers your question.
We'll wait for Mohammed to confirm. Yes, he says. Brown Monday Egbe says, how is data protected from internal data breaches in cases where employees willingly sabotage their own company?
Correct. And that is where you have the proactive security coming in. First thing we do is we make sure that we only give access based on role. So RBAC, role-based access control. So we have that provision. Within that role-based access control, we have adaptive identity and access management put in place, which makes sure that the user profile access is increased or decreased based on the perceived risk by the user. Then once you have taken care of the identity and access management, you go to the next step. The next step is to make sure that the data is protected, data is encrypted, and data is masked. The two scenarios. Number one scenario is that the data is masked, so that even if the malicious insider, in this case, is able to access that part of the database, he is not able to see any other data. The second thing is that we put encryption on top of it, so that the data is encrypted, and even if he tries, he is not able to get access to the data beyond a point. So that is the way in which we do it. We further make sure that if data is in transit, we have synthetic data which is used, so that even if the adversary gets the access to the data, the layer of the data he gets access to is synthetic. It's not the real data. And then we do provide solutions like hashing and salting, which provides another hash on top of the data, so that if you're doing cipher cryptography on top of data, and you're muffling the data, or you're putting a synthetic data, he will not have any sense of what data actually was, because it is having a layer of cryptography put on top of it. So masking, encryption, salting, and obfuscation are various techniques that we use at this side. And then we use role-based access and adaptive identity and access on the identity access side. Now, if this for some reason ends up being the admin or super user, then we have privilege access management, which generates passwords every time, records his session, so that we have a trace of this person. And then we bring on top of these two the principle of least privilege. So the damage he can do to the company is very limited. He will only need to have access at all times within the organization. So I hope that answers at a high level to your question.
If you could just confirm. Okay, thank you, Brown. No other questions for now?
All right, so I'll move ahead then. So what are the skills? I've taken a very high level view in terms of the skills that we require. So basically, we have various skills. If you're going in the area of monitoring, you need a SOC analyst certification, which EC Council offers, ISACA offers, or a incident handler skill, which EC Council offers. And of course, there is no alternative to experience, because even if you get a skill, you need to practicing it. Cloud security, AWS have the certification, Microsoft has the certification. You go on the cryptography side. I was just talking about cryptography. It's a different field in itself, where you want to know about SHA-1, SHA-2, SHA-3, SHA-4, SHA-5, MD5, FIB standards, the Caesar cipher and other ciphers, elliptic, non-elliptic, symmetric, asymmetric cryptography. Then you either pick the firewall skills, where you have Cisco, CCNA, CCNPs, Juniper, Checkpoint, Palo Alto, F5, Zscaler. Then you look at data security, which apart from complementing cryptography is doing data classification and discovery as well, and DLP, Cloud Assurance Security Profile. Go into the area of endpoint, you're looking at antivirus, email security. We're looking at DLP. We're looking at BitLocker, disk encryption, file encryption, which is common to this, but it is in the endpoint area, email security and web security. And we have identity and access management, which has identity management, access governance, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, privilege access management, privilege session manager, endpoint privilege access management, etc. So that comes in this area. And now the passwordless authentication is another area. Then you have ECH, ethical hacker, which is also an area. Of course, you have project management skills where you manage the project. Application testing, you have SAST, DAST, fuzzing, IAS, RASP as an area where you can get into. Then OT, IoT, and SCADA security, which had DCS, distributed control system, PLC, program logical controller, SCADA, human machine interface, etc., securing this part. And the vulnerability management, we do vulnerability scan, vulnerability remediation, and other stuff. So those are some very high level skills that can be acquired in terms of security. And any question on this, I'll be happy to take, or else I'll move forward. So I'll move forward.
Yes, no questions in the chat for now. Except if anyone has.
Dr. Sanjay, this is Eunice again.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a bit more about safety on our mobile phones? Because you mentioned that a bit. If you can highlight on a few things for us, because most of us have mobile phones and it could be good.
Correct. So mobile phones typically have vulnerabilities which are coming into it, and we need to protect from it. One, of course, is we need to make sure that we are looking at the network which we get access to. This doesn't require any additional tool. Make sure that the network which we are connecting to is a WAP2 compliant network. Which can be very, very important. The second is if you're in public place like airport and other thing, we typically end up using our data cable to do the charging of the phone itself. But not many people are aware that the same data cable can be used once you charge it to hack into your phone. So we need to be careful about that. It's advisable to use proper charging cable to charge your phone in the public space. So that's the second thing. The third thing is when you're downloading the software, depending on what kind of phone you have iOS phone, or you have a phone which is from Google, Android. So the difference is that Android, this playbook that allows a lot of application to come, and some of these assessment of security criteria are not up there as iOS has. And the way our phones work are based on various level of authentication. So in the same phone, you have 2 or 3 application, your banking application also, and let's say an e-commerce application or some application, some free, application you have for photos or music or something. Uh, they work on a layer of authentication, and they should not be talking to each other. But these software which you might have phone might be either a spyware looking at your passwords or the other applications you have, and can compromise your other application, or get the access to these passwords to the adversaries. The third is that phone can be breached by having messages like SMS or WhatsApp message, or even emails which you open or sites you open, which you get an email saying that you have won a lottery of so much amount, open this document, and that document would be encrypted. Sorry, it will be having some malware, or a message you will get SMS and you open that SMS and you might have some encrypted or a malicious message in that, and that can release the malware. So you need to have some form of antivirus tool for your phone to ensure that the phone is protected as well. And if you are a corporate, then you have a mobile data management policy to make sure that unauthorized such sites and malicious codes are not allowed to be open. So that, on a nutshell, will be my suggestion for mobile security.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you're a corporate, you will have a policy defined. You will have what sites to go, the restricted site, sites without TLS encryption. That means the site is HTTP rather than HTTPS. They will not allow to. For an individual, that policy enforcement is something which has to be done at a personal level, and the awareness has to be there. Also, one thing we need to remember: if you're using a personal phone for your company and you have an MDM, mobile data management, like AirWatch on your this thing, the control will be your company, that they can reformat your phone at any point in time, or reset your phone, or delete any entry of your phone. So that's not a malware, but it's something which is very much possible. So should I move ahead then the next slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So on the technical skills side, the skills for gaining knowledge, you have to have technology skills where more you understand of the latest technology, the more competitive you are. Product side, what are the different products available? Most product provide certifications. Cisco provides its own certifications. Zscaler provides its own. Palo Alto, Juniper, Symantec, McAfee provide their own certification. More you have knowledge on the offers and products, more certifications you have on that, that's good. Process side, technical process, how the integration with business process is very important. NIST has a whole module, National Institute of Standard and Technologies, on process itself. Architecture is very, very important. What is the underlying architecture? Is it an ISO based architecture? Is it NIST based architecture? Is it Optiva based architecture? It's Ian Sans based architecture. So that architecture is very important, so that you know where things are fitting in. Similarly, the framework, what framework, overall framework is it looking? Is it SASE framework? Is it a zero trust framework? What's a kind of framework it is residing in? The knowledge of those frameworks is also very important. NIST has its own frameworks as well. And then of course you have the ISO framework 27001, and SANS has, Optiva has, FAIR has its framework. And then there are policies. What is the policy organization has put in place for itself. We have also seen that depending on what kind of organization, if you're an electricity company providing electricity to critical infrastructure, you have to have a policy which is put in place. So if I put a patch update, and all my PCs are going to, or servers are going to get rebooted, and those servers are also including the servers which are providing electricity to city or real network, and they're also going to shut down. then there is a problem. Then there has to be a standard operating procedure defined in the policy. That has to be defined so that people who are working know that what is to be done and what not to be done, not just from a security perspective, but also from a perspective of simple things like patches, like updates, or remote access, because it might shut down the service on the other side. So the policies, it has to be known, and you have to be able to draft those effectively as well, knowing all these smaller nuances of compliance, regulatory requirement, business cases. So those are technical skills. The career paths you have in this are technical roles and non-technical roles. You have Chief Information Security Officer, which is the head of security, security manager role, architect roles, SOC analyst role, incident response engineer role, which is very high in demand, uh, analyst role, consultant role, compliance officer, and DPO. In fact, in Europe, by law, every organization has to have a data privacy officer by law. So, it is not a choice. It is legally required to have a data privacy officer. If you have certified in this, you're sure to get a job. Similarly, a lot of requirement in the incident response space and analyst space in terms of even retainer services. Some of the big companies like RSA offers retainer services only for incident response engineering, forensic engineering. Of course, all of these are also having a lot of requirement because, as I said, there's a huge gap in the skill pool available and the need in the industry. The non-technical roles, you can be a security product management person coming up with new products and new services, defining new services. When we're doing business development, sales, alliances, working with Cisco's, Junipers, and others of the world, pre-sales, where you design solution, human resource of hiring resources. Um, a lot of companies like ours also have human resource account managers because large organization requires thousands of people to fulfill the projects. So, and there's a constant gap between iteration and fulfilling it. So there are human resource attached to each large account to ensure that people are groomed, trained, and hired regularly. And then there are hiring teams also within large organization with their functions, within accounts where there are functions as well, and within regions as well. Any question on this part in this particular thing? If not, I'll move ahead.
We have, did you raise your hand? Olamileko.
Okay. As a beginner in cybersecurity, which roles? Because as I can see these roles, they look like something you need like 5, 7, 10 years experience in. So as a beginner, which roles can you get?
You can get an analyst role. You can get a consultant role. If you get a DPO layer, certificate, you can get into this as well. You can get an architect role also there, which is there. It's incident response engineer role. SOC analyst is a role which typical, or a SOC monitoring role, which is the L1 role. So you typically have L1 role, L2 role, L3 role, L4. So you can start with the L1 role, which is doing the monitoring services, which sits in the SOC and does the monitoring. As a beginner, you can also be an endpoint engineer who is configuring antivirus. I, for one, started a similar kind of role many years back. So there are various such options which are there. So you have to see what you're trained in. For example, you're trained in Cisco, or you're trained in Juniper, or which is a network side. You try to get into that area. I, in South Africa, had a lot of people placed for various projects in our various projects in security, which were in network side of it. What we did was with that team that we agreed that we kept on learning so that they can keep growing. It's a company called Telkom in South Africa, Johannesburg, where we started working many years back. So that kind of work also can be done, but you have to have a journey on whatever you pick, because it is not a destination. You pick that thing, and then you will be required to keep doing certification, and which I have a slide for in that area. Does that answer your question, or do I need to explore more? This is important for you.
Thank you. It does.
All right. Okay. So these things are important for me. I thought I'll put slides for this because all of you are going to be the future workforce um, internationally and in your countries. Soft skill and hard skills are very important. Self-management is very important. You will have situation where you will be bombarded with work and you have to manage yourself. Uh, and you'll be successful, not successful at times. Success will eventually come, but you have to manage yourself. Creative debates are very important. At the same time, not being abusive. It is very important to have space for yourself and others to debate and have new ideas. All of us collectively can come up with a lot of good ideas. Only one person can only think so much. Group and teamwork is very, very important. So working together in team, uh, and managing such meetings in a teams is very important. You'll have many such meetings, just which is going to be common on Zoom or Teams. Peer-to-peer interaction, how respectful you are with your peers, and how good relationship you and rapport you build is very going to go a long way. Communication is very important. Different cultures, contextualization is very important. Reflection is very important. Uh, you'll always find yourself in the heat of the moment or thinking that you are right, but it is important that you reflect. And then critical think is very important because you need to think, you need to be inside yourself, but think from a person who is observing yourself as well and others as well, and do critical thinking. I'll further have more emphasis on this thing because this is very crucial. You have to work on communication, which I just mentioned, presentation skills, public speaking. You will be speaking in forums like this and large audience, your teams tomorrow to your management. It's very, very important that you're communicating to large audience and you develop that skills as well. Listening skills are very important. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so obviously he had a plan. He wants to listen to us to listen more, and we need to listen to others and be a good listener. And this is again a skill. It is not that people are born with. Business etiquettes is very important. Um, Communication, behavior, and contextualization of culture, dress, etc., etc. All those are very, very salient things, very important thing. Leadership, um, in stable waters, everybody can be leader. It is in the disruptive waters where you need to show that leadership, and it is putting others in your team before you. Obviously, taking care of yourself goes without saying. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of them. But you have to have this leadership skill develop, and most of the things are interdependent. Motivation, you need to have self-motivation and motivation to the other. You will have, this is a marathon, and it's a long marathon. You need to have skills of motivating yourself. Teamwork, recognizing the team, and working as a team is very important. A writing skill is very crucial. You might know technically a lot of stuff, but there are people who will not know that stuff. They will need articulation, reports. So writing skill becomes very important, and executive presence. You should have some executive presence as you go up. And that also, the more important thing is, I see, is people should be um, um, pleasant in interaction, but they should be also be somebody who people believe to be approachable. Sometimes you are quite good personality, etc., but you don't come across as approachable and people resist, and that is also a problem. So you need to make sure that all those soft skills are developed, and they're very, very crucial in creating impression beyond technology. And how do we acquire these hard skills and soft skills? So experience and knowledge. Hard skills, of course, the project and leadership activities, which we do in experience. Knowledge-wise, it's training and education, professional qualifications, participation in community events, and personal improvement. You cannot do anything. You can't learn swimming by reading. If you need to learn swimming, you need to get into the water. you will not know ever what to do unless you start doing it. And that is very important. So they are in experience and knowledge, and when you start doing something, you know what is missing and you start learning. And I'll come to that slide in a moment. Project and soft skills, you need to have project and leadership skills and self-realization and correction. If you don't self-realize, then it's a problem. So you need to have a reflection time in your day. You need to do little less work so that you can introspect. If you're only working, then it's a problem because you will not have time for introspection. So you need to give that space to yourself. And then from a knowledge perspective, training and education, participate in community events and personal improvement. That is very, very important, and become a personality. Skill development is another very, very important area. Experience, ability, growth, advanced training, knowledge, learning, competition training all go hand in hand in terms of skill development. The hierarchy in terms of skill development starts in terms of you're a student, you need to know, acquire basic knowledge. And this is incompetence, competency, where you need to know what you don't know. And if you're an apprentice, you need to play, you need to have motivational use of knowledge. Now you know what you did not know, and you need to start working towards it. Specialist is work you use whatever knowledge you have for works of purpose or use of knowledge. Whatever you know, it is to put in use. And then if you have an expert, you have use creative use of skills to resolve problems and solve problems. And if you're a master or a craftsman, then you invent, you create new knowledge, skills, products and service, and leadership so that others will follow. So this is Noel Birch 4-stage of competency model. We start with the conscious competence learning model, where we start with unconscious incompetency. That means we do not know what we do not know, and we think we know everything because we do not know so far what we do not. The stage after this is we suddenly realize what we do not know. So now we are move away from thinking that we know everything, that hey, I didn't know this. So this is a conscious incompetency. Now I need to work on this. So we move into the next stage. We try to acquire that competency. And as I said, you can't learn swimming without getting in water. You need to know what you do know. That itself is a big learning. And then once you've acquired this, becomes unconscious competencies like driving. When you're learning driving, it's so hard. And then you later are able to do multiple activities. You are able to talk while driving. You're able to speak to somebody over phone, etc. So it becomes an unconscious competency because this is your second nature. Hence, you go to the various stages: lack of awareness stage, which is unconscious competency; go to awareness stage, which is conscious competency; and go step-by-step stage, which is conscious competency; and then skill stage, which is unconscious competency, where you know this thing, but it becomes your second nature, and it happens over time. These are the various certificates, Asian body. Need not have to start day one. Some of my colleagues, I suggest them to go to free courses on EDX and Lynda and other sites which are available. Once you have done that, then you start looking at these ones, and then the much longer list than I've mentioned. These are some of the highly respected certification: Certified Information Security Professional, CISSP; System Security Professional; Certified Cloud Security Professional; Certified Authorized Professional, CCLP, Certified Secure Software Lifecycle Developer. ISECA is another one which has CISM, Certified Information Security Manager; CISA, which is Certified Information Security Auditor; CARS, Certified in Security and Information Risk Control; GCEIT is Certified in Governance of Information Security; EC Council has CCSO, Certified Information Security Officer; ECH, Certified Ethical Hacker; CNDA, which is Certified Network Defense Architect; CTIA, Certified Threat Intelligence Analyst; and CPNet, which is Certified Penetration Testing. Some of this exam you have to prepare well. It is continuous 6-hour exam. This one, which are approximately used to have 700 questions earlier. Now it's brought down to 350 questions. This one I cleared sometime back last year. This again has 200 odd questions. So you need to do good preparation in order to get into these, and they have 4 different modules in these to clear them. Any questions regarding the certifications?
Yes, we have a question from Kuyet Jato. Uh, Please, what is the most valuable cybersecurity certification to get in order to kickstart a career in cybersecurity?
So it's a journey, you know. If I tell you, if I was a young boy and somebody told me, what do I need to do to do a career, and somebody told me to a BTech, obviously it didn't happen one day. It takes 14 years, 15 years, right? You go to nursery, KG, and then junior school, higher secondary school, and then into college, and then pass it. So similarly is this, if you jump into it, you will be overwhelmed. You start with small, you pick some small courses, learn those things, those subjects before you go into big. CISSP is pinnacle, of course. So you get into this and it's good, but it is costly as well. So better is to do some small certificates. If you go on these websites, you would know those small certificates. Even before that, I will say there are free courses on EDX. Do those courses before you jump into this. If you have already done those, then of course you pick those courses, those exams. But as I said, I know a lot of people who completely get disengaged from the world to prepare for these, uh, for months.
So you might say like the simpler courses, understanding basics and starting off from there.
Yeah. Though, because the once you pay the fees and you don't show up for the exam, or you don't pass it, the fees is gone.
Mhm.
Right. So, and then again, so you have to pay for certificate also after that.
Yeah.
So, better is to be very sure, and then give the exam that you are studied well, there are practice question papers, etc., etc. You will have your own strategy, and once, but it is very important to know what you don't know. That means what all it takes. For example, it has enterprise security as a module. It has governance risk and compliance as a module. So you need to start knowing about those modules. What are subjects? Different, for example, in this exam, when I gave this exam, the training I did over time, it told that this exam will be more from the question. One question can have multiple dimensions of the answer. So this question, when they ask who is responsible for cybersecurity, and simple word will be security head. No, it is not. In their world, it is the board. So the way of which exam you're giving and for whom it is, it matters. Because for them, this is for managers. So they look at from a management perspective. Accountability is different from responsibility. This is hand-turns person. The exam answer will be different. So you need to know that, and you need to first get the fundamental clear. You will know that who is responsible, what is to be done, but then you need to know how to give the answer for the exam. And then of course there are master courses which goes much beyond this is there. So what I learned in Liverpool in my post-graduation goes beyond what you learn in certification.
Okay. Kuyat said thank you. In terms of timing, we are 15 minutes away from our next break, Sanjay.
All right, so I'll go to the next slide then. In terms of product and platform certification, I know a lot of people who do get jobs just because of these certifications. What companies need is somebody who is a Cisco certified CCP, IE, or CCNP or PCNE. There are a lot of companies who need this combined with somebody who knows ArcSight or QRadar or Splunk, so that they can have incident response taken care of. So this is the meat of the thing, because when it comes to managing of these platforms and responding or incident response, these are the skills which are required. And the list goes on. You're going to manage Symantec or a Palo Alto or a Checkpoint or Zscaler or Thales. That, and obviously they have their own list of certificates which are there, and those can be picked. Any questions regarding to product and platform related certification?
We have a question from Lindunda. She or he, sorry, is from Zambia and studying information technology with cybersecurity at Zambia ICT College. Currently in the third year, and would like to do some certifications, but many of these courses are expensive, between 100 and 400 US. The question is, do you know any sites that offer free certification? And if a course is taken at Udemy, for example, or on Udemy, can the certificate be considered as an achievement by employers?
So first question is free size is EDX. So IIT, MIT, Harvard, Yale, all of them offer free courses on that. edx.org. So that's one site. There are similar more sites which offers free courses.
So
Omidi of
EDX would be a good place.
yeah, because they're all, if you get a certificate, you'll end up getting certificate from MIT or some
Yeah.
big college.
Okay.
Right. The other thing is Umidi or Coursera. Obviously, they offer courses. They don't offer certificates,
Mhm.
and they offer certificate of completion.
Yes.
So we just bear that in mind. Most companies should be okay with it, but the previous slide shows those are industry recognized ones. So if big companies will have these in their database. So if you if you go in the database and say I'm CISSP certified or CISM certified or CIS certified, they will have those names in the database. They might not have the name of Coursera or Omidi or the other ones.
Udemy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But then your manager is important. I know for a fact that when I was putting people for telecom in South Africa, the customer wanted specifically CCNA or CCNP person with some knowledge of QRadar. So the girls and boys I had put on the project, we had discovered with the customer that they will work on the certificates. We promised him they will pass the certificate later. And of course, and obviously eventually pass. Some companies offer reimbursements. So Cisco, for example, or these companies, they have tie-up with the employer, and the scheme is you study, we pay. That means you paid for this thing for the exam, but if you pass, you're reimbursed. They pay you for the if you show the proof that you passed it. So those schemes are there in various things. So once you get employed, you will going to find out. Obviously, if you have a situation where the employer says, "I want this person with this skill," and you have an understanding that you will pass it over time, and if he gives you an opportunity, that should then it will worth your investment because you'll be paid for that job, and you can invest from the payment you get from your salaries, or you can figure it out. But essentially, you have to pick one field after your graduation, and then whether it be network or cryptography or end user computing, and then work towards that path. One suggestion is try to do some small courses which are free of cost, and then once you have some confidence, and then you, based on that, what kind of job you get, because it makes sense to get a job in an area, and obviously the job now is also like a business. You reinvest in yourself. The asset you're selling is yourself. You reinvest in that asset and get more skilled, and you're more valuable.
Yes, the responses. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. So the next is the STEPA model at a high level. What you need to, in terms of how will you achieve these goals, because it's a continuous thing, learning, and you need to first have this identification of the goal, why you need to learn, and then target the identification. At this stage, you look at the process, identify the desired goal, which is to be specific, measurable, accurate, realistic, and time bound. You can't have a goal which can be infinite. It has to be time bound. And then you have to have emotions. You need to understand your emotion. What motivates you is very important. And perception, try to see your goal from a broader view, understand the meaning of your purpose. And it's important what specifically it means to you. If you're trying to, you should not get into something you don't like to do. Then you will not go long way. And then plan. Once your target is set, set your overall path for the path you want to take. It is necessary to develop systematically and organize various steps. You have to pace yourself. If you choose to work and study after some time, so that you have earning, real-time training, you're in the water, you know the depth of the water, you know what you need to learn from subconscious incompetency to conscious competency. Then you need to say pace yourself so that you don't burn out, and go towards your target. And action and amend. Things will not go always as you desire. Something will happen in personal life, or something like extraordinary COVID. You need to realign yourself so that you don't lose sight of your goal. Um, from a skill development perspective, you need to mobilize. Action is very important, and then work towards development, and then get a work in that area. Vocational skill training is important, online or on premise, for employment in the country where you live, or for studies beyond what you're doing, or employment beyond you're doing internationally. So the skill gap identification is important. If you choose cryptography, you need to identify the gaps you need to fulfill in cryptography. If you choose network, you need to identify the gaps, and you need to have a plan for, let's say, 25, 30 years. You need to do that, and make sure that you have those steps identified. You might not know everything, so we might need a mentor at some stage. Um, Select the trainings you will have to have. We were just discussing. Make notes, make these various platforms known to yourself, so that you have a path for every training you want to pick up, and you just end up into the training. And then over time, do the skill development in those areas. On the job training is nothing like that. When you are actually doing that configuration, there is no substitute to this. Um, and mentoring and continuous development, find a mentor for continuous development, and of course you're more employment ready thereafter. In terms of skill development, you have the focus zones in terms of the various areas: the impart, improve, evaluate, evolve, and enable. You have the tactical level, the managerial level, and the leadership level. Here we have the enables. You will have soft skills, which are in terms of outbound and process orientation. And then you have tactical skills. You have industry orientation, organization objective, job specific skills, role orientation, industry benchmark, and professions prospects. From a managerial skill, you need to be agile and open for change management, innovation, idea generation, industry best practices, professional orientation, and trend adoption. Things change very fast and need to be adaptable. We may also need to be industry aligned, banking as against manufacturing, as against oil and gas might require different orientation as well. And that has to be also looked at from a managerial perspective. From a leadership perspective or CXO perspective, one, mentoring is very important. Experience sharing and cross-industry experience is very important. Geographical trends is important. The market operations, initiatives, success stories, the vision and the mission is also very important as well. So that's from the three perspective of focus zones, personal enablers for the skill development. The advantage you have with this is expansion of knowledge base. You will have good knowledge. You'll know what knowledge to expand to. Greater professionalism You'll be exposed to more professionalism. You'll be good in the area of work you do, and be very thorough. Improve in people quality and service. This will ensure that you have good quality and the services are better for the employer. You will have job satisfaction and growth because you'll be happy doing what you're doing and eventually lead to growth. And you'll lead to improvement in the employability for you in the market. So that's from the skill development perspective. I'll pause here for any questions.
No questions right now. We have 5 minutes to the break. So would you want to take the break now, or depends on what's left in the?
Yeah, I think I planned for 3 hours, and 3 hours will be done in another 10 minutes. I'll be ending up my slide, I think, in the next slide after this.
Okay, so I think we need another break. Would everyone want a break right now? If you could just indicate in the chat box. While you're indicating in the chat box, I have another question. Please indicate if you want to go on a 10-minute break. And then we'll get to these questions. If you could just, okay, so we have Bilkisu needing a 10-minute break, because then that would be our last stretch. So I just need one more person to confirm if you would like a break, 10 minutes. Okay, all right. So just before we go, we can take the question after the break. That's fine, Sanjay. Thank you. We will be back in 10 minutes and take the last stretch. See you in 10 minutes. Everyone. Welcome back, everyone. If you could just give me an indication that you are here in the chat box. We want to be sure you're still wide awake and with us. And your different time zones in the world right now. So yes, Hamad is here. Tell me you're here. Want to be sure you're with us. Everyone is jumping in now. Oh is here. Olamileko, I decided to call you Kuyet is here. Brown is wide awake. All right. In UAR. Oh, Mercy is here. Excellent. Okay. All right. So let's, we're going to go back over to you, Sanjay.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go to the next slide. So just now a recap on what we did so far, or we discussed, for few tips. Start from the basic in cybersecurity. Look at all controls, the policies, the assets you need to protect. Understand the stakeholders, team. Develop a culture of cybersecurity in your organization, and the ways. Find out the ways to combat the various vulnerabilities or various threats. Strategize for the safety and privacy. Make sure that you have privacy by design principle put in place, various safety controls put in place. You have the buy-in from the right stakeholders, from the managers to the leaders to the owners of those areas, and make your critical system resilient in terms of having proper BCP DR put in place, skill and competent team in place to take care of those vulnerabilities and those risks to those areas. From the skills perspective, transformation perspective, work on be ready. Make sure that when an opportunity meets you, you are ready for it in terms of your skills, capability, behavior, and competency. And this will help you, uh, grow, sustain, and cement yourself in the environment in which you will work and the situations which you will be exposed to. Work on emotional intelligence that will play a much bigger role than anything else. Uh, when dealing with people, it will be more about dealing with people, and then of course skills will come into picture as well. Your personality traits are very important. Work on those personality traits as well. Work on learning, uh, and learning itself. It's a complete syllabus in itself. How to learn and continue learning. Adapt and learn functional skills in the areas you have, and develop physical and cognitive abilities. So that's some of the suggestions I have in terms of the overall this thing, talent, skills, and security. Um, and this is the last thing I want to add. The 5 most efficient cybersecurity defenders are anticipation, education, detection, reaction, resilience. And do remember, cybersecurity is much more than IT topic. It is about all of these factors. So with that, I am coming to a conclusion on my slides, and I will be open to any questions which we have, or any inputs that's required.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sanjay Vaid. We have one question here. Are there any study groups that you can recommend or you could recommend for beginners?
Yeah, so for beginners, I will suggest go to EDX. If you are on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has Lynda. Lynda has a lot of courses as well, which are free of cost. That will be a good start point to go on. Somebody mentioned Umidi. Umidi courses are very cheap, cost-wise, affordable. That will be another good area. Look at books which are available on these various certification I talked about. They have their examination books for question papers they have, so that you can prepare for those as well. So those are top of the mind things I can recommend.
Could you please, for the first one, you mentioned Linda, could you spell that out, please? Or just type in the chat box.
Linda.
Oh,
Go to LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning.
Oh,
LinkedIn
LinkedIn.
has,
Okay.
yeah, LinkedIn Learning. The
Thank-
platform is called Lynda, and they have a lot of courses. So all this CompTIA exam, or the exam for CSSP, CSM, they have various. There is also one more site called Cyberary. Cyberary is a subscription. So if you have used Netflix, and if you watch Netflix or Amazon Prime, like you have movies on that, they have courses for these exams on that. So when you subscribe, instead of watching movies, you watch videos of training.
Cyber.
And Cyberary, SYBCIBERARAY, Cyberary.
AR.
AY, Cyberary.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those are, I'll just relook at Cyberary, but those are some of these, sites I will recommend.
Okay. We can still keep our questions coming in while we go to.
Yeah, I'll just put in a name, SEYBRARY.IT.
Okay. Excellent.
Yes, please.
Could you please stop sharing, Dr. Vaid?
Yes, madam.
Thank you. Okay. So please keep the questions coming. I'm going to put back my video. Keep the questions coming, and we will now go to our post poll. before we go to the closing statements of the day. But as I said, you can still keep the questions coming in. We still have time to address any of them. Just in case you are curious, if you registered for this event on Eventbrite, you will get the material. So that's right, Dr. Vaid, right, Sanjay? That's correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so the material will be ready. So both the slides and the recording will be made available to you if you registered on Eventbrite and attended the session. And we're just going to launch the second poll right now to get an idea of where we are, with. So I'm going to, just as a way of reminding you, share the results of the first poll, okay? When we started out, we had medium and low levels of knowledge. You found that the topic of cybersecurity was extremely relevant, and some had relevant. You were likely to take precautions for your online safety, likely to, somewhat likely, and a little likely. Your gender identity, the males were more, and of course we had participants from Asia and Africa. So I'm going to launch the second one in just a minute. Just 1 second. So now you have more or less the same questions. I'd like you to please take a minute to answer. Waiting on our participants to answer. I have no answers yet. Just waiting for you to vote. Okay, we're coming up. Oh, where did all the ladies go? I know there are ladies out there. At least I think I can see you. Okay. Levels of knowledge have gone up. I'm just waiting before I share the results. I'm going to give you exactly the same time that you had before. Ah, a lady finally jumped in. So we're taking the post poll. Could you please, if you just entered, just take the poll as well. I'm waiting on a couple of people. Well, one person, I think. Of those here, we're taking a representative sample. Bilkisu, can you confirm if you have the poll? You can confirm in the chat if you can't speak, because it's taking long. Okay, looks like yes, excellent. All right, so I'll just be ending the poll so that we can see the results. All right, let's share the results. So pretty much the same at the beginning. So we're quite interested in this. Your levels of knowledge have increased. This will also be shared with our partner and facilitator. How relevant. So we've really like jumped pretty high in that, about how relevant cybersecurity is, your likelihood. Interesting, because I noticed there was Europe. So this is an interesting one, Sanjay. Olamilekon said, and I'm going to tell everyone what you did. He hacked the poll integrity. He says he supplied the wrong location. The good thing is that we do have backup data through our Eventbrite, which is data triangulation. So you supply the wrong location. Maybe our location could have been detected automatically. Is this something that is possible, say on Zoom?
Depending on the configuration, it is possible. Yes.
Okay. So it's a lot to do with settings. Fortunately, we have your name. We have your names and location. All right. So thank you very much for participating in the polls. I will just also share my screen now. 1 second. All right, because we are coming to the end. As you can see, this is what we had planned for the end. I'm just gonna give the floor to Eunice to give the closing remarks before we say our big thank yous to Dr. Sanjay Vaid. Over to you, Eunice.
Yeah, thank you for all of you staying over. I know that you still, you're working really hard to get your internet data up and running, and it wasn't easy, especially for those of us living in Africa. I just want to say that thank you, Dr. Sanjay, for being on this with me. What we are looking at is bringing expert industry information to the youth, so that they can better make better decisions about their cybersecurity and information that actually you wouldn't easily have access to. And I think that we have actually been able to do that today. I want to thank everybody who made it a purpose to sit for 3 hours. That's a long one, to learn and to be part of this amazing conference. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ewe, I call you Ewe, for making this possible. I am far away in Norway, so it's quite a distance, but we were able to do this, and you really done a good job. And I'm so proud to be a partner with you in this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eunice. We're going to, I mean, NSI is, even the name is so classy, you know. NSI, thank you so much for supporting us and being there for us. Dr. Sanjay, we cannot thank you enough. Like, you just kept on, and I think you're even stronger than all of us watching, listening. And we are so privileged. Thank you so much for being a part of this, and not just being a part, but actually leading. And we're hoping to work with you even more in the future. You can actually find Dr. Sanjay Vaid on LinkedIn. But of course, to reach him, I'm just going to show you the connection details and how to reach InnerSci. But before that, I would just like to get some feedback from you on the chat box. Like, tell us, you know, what was good, what we can improve the next time. And if you could also recommend other people, not by name, but maybe by email, recommend other people who could benefit from sessions like this, STEM-related sessions and programming, that would be great. So I'll just give you a minute to give us some feedback, as well as any contact details of those who would be able to benefit from similar programming. And please don't feel shy to tell us that, you know, your hair was not standing straight or anything. Feel free. Feedback helps us to improve. So if you tell us what we can improve and what went well, what you really liked, that would really be helpful.
Just to add to Sophia, every feedback is priceless. So it helps us to be better and helps us to move forward in the right direction. So feel free to share with Sophia if you have any contacts or organizations that could be of benefit. Please share it with her.
And while you're doing that, I will just put back the slide that has our contact details. So you can see the contact details for EWI. That's our website and an email to contact us. You can find us everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, I heard is the right way to pronounce, and Tumblr. And with Innosci, this is the website. The contact email is hello@innosci.com, and you can find Innosci on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So if you have any inquiries, feel free to reach out to us. As I said before, if you registered on Eventbrite and attended, you will receive the materials for this session. So I'll just leave it on for one more minute.
A hand up for TechnoSpark, I'm not sure.
Just 1 second. Okay, please go ahead. TechnoSpark is Jeremiah, I think. Just go ahead if you have anything you would like to say. Nothing? Okay, you can also always put that in the chat box. If you can't speak, you can always put that in the chat box as well. Lots of appreciation for Dr. Sanjay. I like this one. You're an embodiment of knowledge. Every single minute of the 3 hours was worth it. It was very.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'll leave this slide on if we would like to leave. Okay, so Techno says, thanks, Doctor. Dr. Sanjay, do you have any closing remarks? Anything you would like to add?
Yeah, so thank you very much for this opportunity. This area has a lot of opportunity for everybody. It's a journey, follow the journey, be honest to yourself, ask yourself tough questions so that you get honest answers and follow that answer to move from a unconscious incompetency to a conscious competency, incompetency and conscious competency. I wish you all the best.
Excellent. For one last thing, I'm going to ask, if you are able to put on your video, could you please do that? If you are able to do that, we want to take a nice photo and say bye-bye and actually wave bye-bye to one another. So if you're able to, it's going to be very fast. If you are able to, I know that the, internet is a challenge. Oh, I can see all the faces.
Amazing, amazing, amazing.
Let's see if we can see everyone. I'm going to take it in like the next minute or so. Excellent. Kuyat, Techno, Bilkisu, Praneet. This is so good. Almost there.
Yes.
Almost there. Our hacker. Let's see you. All right, 2 more people. Let's see if you can do it. Come on. Bilkisu, I'm sure your hair is fine. It's the same. Oh, Mandy, it's you. All right, I'm gonna have to take it now because we're not sure. Okay, so we have a nice photo that will also come to you. Hair is not looking good. Okay, Praneet. Thank you so much for joining us. You will hear about other events, and take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.